Hey guys, welcome back for another video. We got a fun one prepared today. What we'll be doing is we'll be looking at our early Week 13 matchups for all of the NFL games coming up in Week 13. Week 12 is just about to wrap up in the books. The Monday night game has not happened as of me making this video, but it's never too early to start looking at the matchups we have coming up the next week. We're going to break down the matchups and try to predict the outcome. Who's going to win, who's going to lose, and what the final score will be. And we'll also touch on the best bets, the money lines, the spreads, and the over-unders for all of these games. Make sure you hit that like button. Make sure you subscribe. If you're a NFL football fan, if you're a college football fan, if you're a sports fan, make sure to hit that like button. Make sure to subscribe to the channel. Every week we go over every single game, NFL and college, and we break them down. So you want to make sure you're subscribed to the channel so you can follow along with us. But let's go ahead and get started. Like I said, the Monday night game hasn't happened, so there's still one game that we're waiting for the outcome on, but we actually have 3 Thursday night games coming up this week. Don't forget, we have Thanksgiving this week. There's going to be some really fun ones popping up. The very first one that we're going to have on Thursday, November 28th at 12:30 p.m. on CBS, the 4 and 7 Chicago Bears coming off of that overtime loss to the Vikings. They almost ended their losing streak, but they ended up losing. They'll be playing the 10-1 Detroit Lions coming off of another beatdown, blowing out the Colts. Right now, the Lions here, they are 10.5 point favorites. The over-under is 48.5. The Lions are double-digit favorites basically every single game for the last 1 to 2 months, and they have a 77.1% chance to win this game. Obviously, the Bears finally solved some offensive problems. They were having issues getting the ball into the end zone. They finally scored some touchdowns, especially at the very end of that game to push it into overtime. But the Detroit Lions are a completely different monster here. Obviously, they have the number 1 offense in the NFL. They have a top 5 defense. Right now, the Bears are being led by Caleb Williams, closing in on 2,400 yards, 11 touchdowns, 5 picks. He is starting to play better because the offensive line is holding up a little better. He's getting rid of the ball, but we know one of the things that cost him in that game was he held the ball too long on that very last possession in overtime. Caleb, you have to play better than that. You can't hold the ball for 10 to 12 seconds. Common sense, man. If it's not there, get rid of it. They're averaging 20.1. They're throwing for 187.1, running for 111.8. The Bears still have a very good defense. Defense does travel. They're only giving up 19.7. But we know who the Detroit Lions are, as of right now, the best team in the NFL. To me, it's not even close. Goff back to 2023 form, closing on a 2,800 yards, 20 touchdowns, 9 picks. They're averaging 32.7, number 1 offense, throwing for 243.5, running for 150.8. And their defense, even without Hutchinson, continuing to play at a high level, only giving up 16.6 points a game. This is a tough team, and they are loaded. Gibbs, Montgomery, St. Brown. They can beat you running, throwing. They can beat you with their defense. Chicago does have Swift, Moore, Odunze. They have a good wide receiver core, but Detroit is loaded. Barring the Bears playing a perfect game, I have the Lions winning this one 28-17. And then our next game also on Thursday at 4:30 p.m. on Fox, the 2 and 9 New York Giants coming off of that loss to the Buccaneers versus the 4 and 7 Dallas Cowboys coming off of a win versus the Washington Commanders. What a game that was. Props to the Cowboys for pulling that out. Right now, Dallas is going to be a 4-point favorite. The over-under here is 38 points, and Dallas has a 52.9% chance to win this game. We know that with the Giants, they released Daniel Jones. They have a lot of internal struggles going on. They have a lot of problems in that locker room. They went with Tommy DeVito. He did light a spark under them last season. Played very well this past Sunday. He can lead them to a win versus Dallas. This is a massive rivalry game here, but Rush also led the Cowboys to a win versus the Commanders, so you know that he's one of the better backups in the NFL, and he still has a lot of reps under him from last season. Right now, the Giants are averaging 14.8 a game. They're throwing for 187.9, running for 115.9. Their defense gives up 22.9, which actually isn't bad considering the fact that they're on the field the entire game. And for Dallas, they're averaging 20.1, throwing for 240.6, running for 82.5. The rushing game's been a massive weakness for them, but Dowdle actually had a pretty decent game this past weekend. He was only averaging about 30 to 40 rushing yards per game. So the fact that he had, I think, 86, props to him for actually having a good game. Their weakness is their O-line, running game, their defense. They're bad in all 3 phases of that. At least they got the running game going this past weekend, but they do give up 29 points a game. They have the 2nd worst statistical defense in the NFL. That's un-Dallas Cowboys-like. They have a lot of pieces they have to fix. Obviously, Dak is out for the season. For the Giants, Tracy Jr., Neighbors was back. He had a good game. He's a legit wide receiver number 1. We just need to get him the ball consistently. And for Dallas, they have Dowdle. They have CeeDee Lamb, who obviously, CeeDee Lamb's the primary weapon, but he can't carry this entire team on his back. I could see either one of these teams winning this game. Both of them have backups playing. Anything can happen. So I have to go with the home team here. I have Dallas winning this one 23-20. And then on NBC at 8:20 p.m., the 5-6 Miami Dolphins here first. The 8-3 Green Bay Packers. Miami is finally getting hot on the offensive side. They have a 3-game winning streak. Since Tua came back from his 4-game injury, this is a completely different offense. This is an offense that can keep up with anyone. Right now, we have the Green Bay Packers actually come in here at 3.5-point favorites. The over-under is 47.5. And the Packers have a 66.5% chance to win this game. This is a completely different Miami team with a healthy Tua, loaded offensive roster, but obviously the Packers are coming off of a complete beatdown of the 49ers, who are banged up and injured. But still, that's a very good win. The Green Bay Packers have a really good offensive roster, and they also have the defense to complement it. Right now for Miami, Tua's closing in on 1,800 yards, 13 touchdowns, 4 picks. They finally got Waddle going this past game. Now it's time to get Hill going. Right now they're averaging 19.5, throwing for 207.1, running for 116.8. And their defense playing much better as of late, because as the offense scores, it keeps the defense off the field. They're giving up 21.5. They have Tua, Ochert, Mostyn, Hill, Waddle, Berrios, Beckham. So many weapons, so many people that they can spread the ball out to. And for Green Bay, as long as Jordan Love plays a clean turnover game, very, very dangerous team. This is a playoff caliber team. Love's closing in on 2,300 yards, 18 touchdowns, 11 picks. One of the best offenses in the NFL. They're averaging 26.2. Throwing for 230.7, running for 151.6, and only giving up 20.3 points a game. They're going to try to make it difficult for the Dolphins to be able to establish the game on the ground. They have Jacobs closing in on 1,000. They have Reed. I'm actually going to go with a little bit of an upset here. I have Miami and their rejuvenated offense just barely pulling this game out, winning this one 24-23. But to me, this game is a 50-50 pick'em. It could go either way, but I'm going to go with the hot hand and go with the Dolphins right now. Then we actually have a Black Friday game this year, Friday, November 29th at 3 p.m. on Amazon. We have the 2-9 Las Vegas Raiders versus the 10-1 Kansas City Chiefs. The Chiefs, massive favorites here, 13.5-point favorites. The over-under is 42.5. The Chiefs have a 76.1% chance to win this game. Let's be honest with the Raiders. They're not really good at anything specifically. They're not good at offense. They're not good at special teams. They're not good at defense, running the ball, throwing the ball. Right now, they're going to be going with Gardner Minshew. It doesn't really matter if it's Minshew, O'Connell. They struggle with turnovers, and they struggle getting the ball in the end zone. Right now, they're averaging 18.7. Throwing for 218, only running for 74.6 yards per game. The worst rushing offense in the NFL here versus one of the best defenses in the NFL, and they are giving up 28.5 points a game. That's the third worst overall defense. For Kansas City, obviously, that Carolina game was a little bit of a disaster. They pulled it out, but they almost lost to the Carolina Panthers, but this is the NFL. Stuff like that does happen. They are the defending Super Bowl champs. Patrick Mahomes closing in on 2,700 yards, 18 touchdowns, 11 picks. The main thing that stands out to me is they've cut the turnovers down. Through the first half of the season, plagued by a lot of turnovers. They're playing clean football right now. They're averaging 24.5. They're starting to get healthy on the offense. They're throwing for 226.5, running for 116.3. That defense is a playoff caliber defense. We know their defense. They've played field position. They get after the quarterback. They get pressures. They're giving up 19.8. They only give up 85 on the ground. Raiders only run for 74. This is one of the best rush defenses in the nation. They're going to get after it. If you shut that run down, you're going to force the Raiders into third and long situations, which is going to mean turnovers, which means the Chiefs offense gets the short field. They have Hunt, Pacheco, Kelsey, Worthy. Guys are starting to come back in. They're starting to be fully healthy. This is a team that gears up second half, leading to the playoffs. Very experienced veteran team. I have Kansas City winning this one, 28-15. And then on Fox at 1 p.m., you have the 6-5 Arizona Cardinals coming off of a pretty sloppy loss to the Seahawks. They'll be playing the 9-2 Minnesota Vikings. The Minnesota Vikings have looked a little shaky the last few games, but hey, they continue to win. Never apologize for a win. Right now, the Vikings 3.5-point favorites. The over in here is 46.5, and they have a 58.8% chance to win this game. Obviously, the Cardinals, they have a pretty good offensive roster. Their defense has been playing better this season. They've been working on that pass rush. That was their major weakness. The Cardinals are very flip-floppy. They play a really bad game, then they play a great game. They played a bad game this past weekend, so you're probably due to get a good Cardinals team coming in here this game. So there's the potential there for the upset. Kyler Murray closing on 2,400 yards, 12 touchdowns, 4 picks, and we also know that he's a guy that can extend plays with his legs. He has 4 rushing touchdowns. They're averaging 22.2, throwing for 201.7, running for 140.3, giving up 21.5 points a game, which is much lower than it's been the last few years. And for Minnesota, Sam Darnold, 2,800 yards, 21 touchdowns, 10 picks. He had a couple turnovers the last few games, but still he did a lot to get them to win this past weekend. That was a shootout with the Bears. This is a very talented team. Offensive roster, defensive roster. They're averaging 24.9. They're throwing for 234. They're running for 117.1, only giving up 17.9 points a game. And a top 2 national rush defense, only giving up 74.7 yards a game. Cardinals want to establish the run with Connor, and then they want that to open up that play action, open up that third down passing with McBride, Marvin Harrison Jr. when he's fully healthy. But Minnesota, they're going to try to control the ground game. Jones, when you need the pass, is a fully healthy Jefferson who had a good game this past Sunday. The Vikings are loaded on both sides of the ball. But the Cardinals here, this is a game that they can win. This is a game they can pull out. But I'm going to go with the home team. I have Sam Darnold continuing to play better and them controlling the game on the ground. They win this one 30-23. And then at 1 p.m. on Fox, the 6-5 Seattle Seahawks coming off that win versus the Cardinals versus the 3-8 New York Jets who are coming off the bye, fully rested, fully healthy. Right now, the Seahawks are 1.5-point favorites. The over-under here is 41.5, but it's the Jets who have a 55.3% chance to win this game. For Seattle, this is a team that started out 3-0. Since then, they've gone 3-5. They've been struggling to play consistently. Geno Smith has a great game. The very next game, he has 3 picks. Which version of Geno Smith shows up here? On the road. They're not worried about the cold. He's played in the cold before, but it's on the road versus the Jets defense that is technically roster-wise a top 10 defense. But what version of the Jets defense do we also get? Right now, Geno Smith, the number 1 passing team in the NFL. He's closing in on 3,100 yards, 12 touchdowns, 12 picks. He throws as many picks as he throws interceptions. To beat the Jets defense, we're going to have a clean game. They're averaging 22.4, throwing for 257.2, only running for 89.1. They got to get those rush yards up. They're giving up 22.2 points a game. Then you have Aaron Rodgers on the other side, closing on 2,500 yards, 17 touchdowns, 7 picks. They're averaging 18.5. Throwing for 207.2, running for 87.2, giving up 22 points a game. The Jets don't have a bad roster. They have Hall, Wilson, Lazard, a healthy Devontae Adams. He's the veteran Rodgers needs for those third down situations. Seattle wants to run the ball. They want to run the ball with Kenneth Walker. They have Smith. They have DK Metcalf. They have a very talented passing roster here, a good wide receiver core. But I think the Jets being healthy here can pull this one out close. I'm going to go with that plus 1.5. I have the Jets winning at home here, pulling the upset, winning 23-17. And then on CBS at 1 p.m., the 7-3 Chargers, they haven't played yet because the Monday night game hasn't happened, versus the 6-5 Falcons coming off the bye week, fully rested here. They had a lot of things that they need to work on, especially on defense. Right now, the Chargers, they're going to obviously have the short week here, obviously playing Monday night. So are they going to be rested enough to pull this game off? Right now, they are the favorite, 1.5-point favorite. The over here is 47.5. They have a 51.3% chance to win this game. So this game is basically a pick-em. It's a 50-50 matchup. This one could go either way. The Chargers will have that short week. That could make a massive difference here. Right now, Justin Herbert, they're starting to push the ball vertically down the field more. This is a hardball team. They love to play defense. They love to run the ball. But when you have a weapon like Herbert, if the game turns into a shootout, he's more than capable of shooting it out, closing on 2,200 yards, 13 touchdowns, 1 pick. They're averaging 22 a game. Throwing for 204.8, running for 121.6, but it's that number 1 defense in the NFL only giving up 14.5. When your defense is that good, it's going to travel on the road with you. When the Falcons have played great defenses, they have struggled to consistently move the ball. Right now, Cousins closing on 2,900 yards, 17 touchdowns, 9 picks. They're averaging 22.2, throwing for 243.6, running for 117.9, giving up 24.9 points a game. Harbaugh wants to play time of possession, control the line of scrimmage. They have Herbert. They have J.K. Dobbins. McConkey's really stepped on the last few games. This is going to be a game that J.K. Dobbins is going to set the pace of the game on the ground. And for the Falcons, they're loaded. Bijan Robinson, Algiers, Mooney, Pitts, multiple weapons, multiple ways they can beat you. But the Falcons are going to have to play a clean game here, and Kirk Cousins is going to be under a lot of pressure. I think that pressure at the line of scrimmage is what makes the difference. It gives the Chargers the edge. They win this one 27-23. And then at 1 p.m. on CBS, the 8-3 Pittsburgh Steelers versus the 4-7 Cincinnati Bengals. The Bengals coming off the bye, fully rested here, and the Steelers are coming off that Thursday night game. Both teams have had a lot of time to be able to prepare for this game. Right now, the Bengals, 2.5-point favorites. The over-under is 47 points, and the Bengals have a 50.8% chance to win this game. Basically split down the middle, 50-50. What version of Russell Wilson do we get? I'm not fully sold yet on Russell Wilson this season. Right now, it's closing on 1,300 yards, 7 touchdowns, 2 picks, and Joe Burrow is lighting things up through the air. He's closing in on 3,100 yards. 27 touchdowns, 4 picks, putting up crazy passing numbers. For the Steelers, they're averaging 22.9, throwing for 192.8, running for 135.2, giving up 16.9 points a game. This is a top 3 defense in the NFL. As I already mentioned, defense travels. This is a defense that they can rely on. Every game is a one-possession game. Whether they win it or they lose it, Tomlin plays close line of scrimmage games. Just like the Chargers, they play defense, special teams, they run the ball. And right now, for the Bengals, they're averaging 27 points a game, throwing for 262.7, running for 91.5, giving up 26.9 points a game. They have a very questionable defense. There will be opportunities for the Steelers to be able to keep this game close. They have Najee Harris. Harris is also going to set the mood here. How good of a game does he have on the ground? Can the Bengals stop the run game? Right now, they're giving up 130 yards per game on the ground. The Steelers will be able to run the ball. That running ball is going to complement their offense, opening up that play action for Russell Wilson to find Pickens on those third down situations. And for the Bengals, they have Brown, Chase, Higgins, one of the best wide receiver cores in the nation. I'm going to go with the Bengals squeaking this one out, 24-20. But this is one of those games you got to watch. With the Steelers defense, with their ground game, and with the Bengals deficiencies on defense, the Steelers could easily win this one on the road. And then on CBS at 1 p.m., the 7-5 Houston Texans versus the 2-9 Jacksonville Jaguars. Right now, the Texans 5.5-point favorites. The over-under here is 43.5, and they have a 74.4% chance to win this game. Obviously, this game is going to be a blowout. Texans, they need a win bad here. They've been playing sloppy football for the last month. They have to take these games versus these depleted teams. You don't want to take them for granted. You want to steal the win here. Stroud closing in on 2,900 yards, 14 touchdowns, 9 picks. Trevor Lawrence is obviously out, so they're going to be going with Mac Jones. Right now, Houston, they're averaging 23.8, throwing for 221.4, running for 114.6, giving up 22.3 points a game. The big thing for them, to add with Joe Mixon, you have Nico Collins back fully healthy. When he's playing, he's a top 3 wide receiver in the NFL. And for Jacksonville, they're averaging 18.9, throwing for 189.2, running for 101.6. Their defense gives up 28.7 points a game. There's going to be loads of opportunities for Houston to push the ball down the field. Jacksonville has a bottom 3 secondary, giving up 278.3 yards per game. There's going to be guys wide open down there. Stroud will find them. He will hit them. Right now for Jacksonville, not a bad team. They have Bigsby. They have Brian Thomas Jr. They have Kirk. If he's able to play, if he's healthy, that's a massive question mark here. And they have the weapons to somewhat make this game interesting, but they won't be able to keep up with Houston for 4 quarters. I have the Texans winning this one handedly, 27-17. And then at 1 p.m. on CBS, the 5-7 Colts versus the 3-9 Patriots. Right now, the Colts 2.5-point favorites on the road. The over here is 42.5, and they come into this game. They have a 60.5% chance to win this game. Obviously, the Colts are coming off of getting thrashed by the Lions, but who doesn't get beat down by the Lions these days? And the Patriots are coming off of that loss to the Dolphins when they were down massively, but they were competing garbage time fourth quarter. Looking at this game right now, obviously, the Colts, they benched Flacco. They went back to Richardson. He had a good game 2 weeks ago. I've been a critic of Richardson. The guy is not an accurate passer. He didn't have a bad game this past weekend, but they did struggle to move the ball and get first downs. He's closing in on 1,500 yards, 5 touchdowns, 7 picks. Drake May closing in on 1,500 yards, 10 touchdowns, 7 picks. Both young quarterbacks. Right now, the Colts are averaging 20.2, throwing for 199.7, running for 116.7. And they're giving up 22.8, and the Patriots are averaging 16.4. One of the worst offenses in the NFL, but they do lack weapons at almost every single position. They're throwing for 167.3, running for 112.8, giving up 23.5 points a game. The big thing the Colts have, the weapons they have Pittman back, Pierce, Jonathan Taylor, who can run it and he can catch the ball out the backfield. That's a massive friend there for the quarterback. And for the Patriots, Stevenson, Hunter Henry. To me, the Colts, you have the better skill position players. You do not have a bad offensive roster by any means. Look for Richardson to have a decent game here. I have the Colts winning this one on the road, 21-18. And then what out of nowhere's turned into a pretty interesting game coming up on 1 p.m. on CBS. The 3-8 Tennessee Titans coming off of beating the Houston Texans. What a game they had. They'll be playing the 7-5 Washington Commanders, who are coming off of losing to the Dallas Cowboys. Tennessee beat a team they weren't supposed to beat. Washington lost to a team that they weren't supposed to beat. So how does each team rebound here? Can Tennessee turn that into some momentum, get them to beat back-to-back really good teams? Or can Washington get their team rebounded, get this team back on track here to get a rebound win versus the Tennessee Titans? Right now, for the Titans, they've been rolling with Levis. They've been rolling with Rudolph. They're going to go with Levis this game. Obviously, he delivered you the win this past weekend. But the Commanders are 6-point favorites. The over-under here is 43.5. They have a 66.4% chance to win this game. Jane Daniels closing in on 2,600 yards, 12 touchdowns, 5 picks. And he can add 5 rushing touchdowns to that. He ran for 70 yards this past weekend. But he shouldn't have to run. The offense needs to step up so he's not having to control the entire pace of the offensive game through the air and on the ground. Right now, Tennessee, they're averaging 18.4, throwing for 187.7, running for 118.4. They're giving up 26.4 points a game, but they only give up 275 yards of offense because throughout the season, they've had turnovers on their own side of the field, giving the opposing offense the short field to have to score. They need to play a clean turnover game, and they can pull another upset here and beat the Washington Commanders. They're averaging 27.8, obviously a top 5 offense, throwing for 222.8, running for 147.8, and they're giving up 23.1 points a game. For Tennessee, Levis, Pollard, Ridley, and for Washington, Jaden Daniels is now the leading rusher, closing in on 600 yards. That's great. That's great for fantasy. He shouldn't be having to run the ball that much. They need to get the running game situated, and they have Terry there at the wide receiver position. Washington's loaded here, but they're kind of starting to sputter out as we go towards the end of the second half of the season. But I have Washington getting back in the win column here, winning this one 27-20. But this is a game to me you got to watch because you can see two teams going in different directions. Washington's running out of steam. Tennessee's picking up steam, but Tennessee only has a chance if they play a clean turnover game. And then on Fox at 4:05 p.m., the 5-6 Tampa Bay Buccaneers versus the 3-8 Carolina Panthers. Tampa Bay is coming off of beating down the New York Giants. They won that 137. And the Panthers almost beat the defending champs, the Kansas City Chiefs. The Panthers have been playing actually really good for the last 3 to 4 games. Bryce Young looks like a completely different quarterback since he's come back into the starter role. But right now, the Bucs 6-point favorites here. The over in this game is 46.5, and they come into this game with a 69.1% chance to win this game. Obviously, Baker Mayfield, you had all of the injuries. You lost Evans. You lost Godwin, who was leading the NFL in receptions, and yet still, you've consistently been able to move the ball, put up points. This team is very talented here, especially on offense. Defense, not so much. They do leave a lot to be desired, but Baker Mayfield is throwing the ball as well as anyone this season, picking up where he left off last year. He's 1 yard shy of 2,800, 24 touchdowns, 9 picks. He's second in the NFL in passing touchdowns. And right now, Bryce Young closing in on 1,100 yards, 5 touchdowns, 6 picks. Can Carolina continue to keep that momentum going? If you keep playing these close games, you're bound to steal a couple ones from the favorite team. Right now, Tampa Bay, they're averaging 28.1. They have a top 5 offense. They're throwing for 241.5, running for 128.1. The big news this past weekend, they got Evans back. Obviously, he's an experienced veteran wide receiver. He opens up the passing game, lets you push that ball deep down the field. They're giving up 24.6, and for the Panthers, they're averaging 17.6, throwing for 177.8, running for 107.7. They do have the worst defense in the NFL, giving up 30.9, but the offense is actually playing better. The offense playing better will take some pressure off the defense, and they might not be the worst team in the NFL anymore right now, playing really good football, and they have Chuba Hubbard. Chuba Hubbard is the X factor on this team. Everyone knows they're running the ball, yet no one can stop the guy. He's closing in on 900 yards. I have Tampa Bay continuing to stay in that win column. They finally got a win this past weekend. I have things continuing to stay that way. They win this game 33-23. To me, they have too many weapons, and Baker Mayfield, he is on fire right now. And then the next game we're looking at 4:05 p.m. on Fox, the 5-6 LA Rams versus the 4-7 New Orleans Saints coming off the bye, and they're riding a 2-game winning streak. They were 2-0 to start the season, then they dropped 7 straight. Now they've won 2 straight. Hopefully, they want that winning streak to continue to be running hot. And the Rams are 5-6, but do not underestimate the Rams. They're much better than their record shows, because when they're healthy, which they haven't been healthy the whole season, but they are healthy right now, you have the veteran Stafford. He's closing in on 2,900 yards, 15 touchdowns, 7 picks. You have Williams at the running back position. He can catch the ball. He can run the ball. You have Cooper Kupp, Nakua. Atwell, multiple weapons, multiple guys to spread the ball out to you. So as long as the defense can hold up enough, this is an offense that's more than capable of competing with anyone in the NFL in a shootout game. They're averaging 21.2, throwing for 236.7, running for 95.1. Their defense, highly questionable, giving up 25.1 points a game. They need a good game out of their defense. And right now for the Saints, what version of the Saints shows up? 7-game losing streak or 2-game winning streak Saints? It could go either way. Not a bad roster, but they haven't usually been on the field together playing a complete game. Right now the Saints are averaging 23.8. Throwing for 216.6, running for 130.7, giving up 23.6 points a game. They do give up just under 260 passing yards, under 135 rushing yards, so there will be opportunities for the Rams to move the ball. And for the Saints, so much of the offense is geared around Alvin Kamara, closing in on 800 yards, rushing 500 yards receiving. He's their primary weapon. He's the do-it-all guy. Someone else has to step up. They do have Olave when he's fully healthy. It's not a bad roster, but like I said, they're never playing on the field together at the same time. They show up when the offense plays well, defense gets torched, vice versa, every single week. I have the Rams and their offense making the difference on the road here. I have the Rams winning this one 27-24. And this next one to me could be the game of the weekend at 4:25 p.m. on CBS. The 9-2 Philadelphia Eagles versus the 7-4 Baltimore Ravens. Right now, the Ravens 2.5-point favorites. The over-under here is 50.5. They have a 56.8% chance to win this game. This game could go either way. 50-50, pick them down the middle. I might even change my mind at the end of the week when I make my final video right before the game. But this is two very talented teams. Obviously, the Eagles are coming off of beating down the Rams 37-20. Baltimore hasn't played yet. They play the Chargers Monday night, so we don't fully know what Baltimore team we're going to see for Week 12. But Week 13, we know what they're capable of because Lamar Jackson is again putting up MVP caliber numbers here. But this is a game that could go either way. Right now, the Eagles, obviously, since the second half of last season, they had turnover problems. Coming into this season, they've massively cut the turnovers down, playing clean football, number one rushing offense in the NFL. Saquon Barkley's putting up MVP numbers right now at the running back position, and their defense is playing at a playoff caliber level. Right now, Hurts closing in on 2,400 yards, 13 touchdowns, 5 picks. Lamar Jackson closing in on 2,900 yards, 25 touchdowns, 3 picks. He's also putting up MVP caliber numbers. For the Eagles, they're averaging 26.7. They're throwing for 195.7, running for 193.4, the most balanced team in the NFL. It's not even close, and they only give up 18.1 points a game. For Baltimore, they have the offense here. They're averaging 30.4, throwing for 252.8, running for 177.3, the number 2 rushing offense in the NFL. They give up 24.6. So obviously, Philadelphia has the edge on defense. Baltimore, very questionable secondary. Actually, the worst secondary in the NFL, giving up 284.5 passing yards per game, but only 77.5 rushing yards per game. Second best rush defense. You can throw all over Baltimore, but you cannot run on them. So the Eagles, are you going to have a healthy wide receiver core? Brown, Smith, it's been a little while since those guys have both been healthy. When they are, that opens up that passing game. There's going to be opportunities to throw. You want to be able to throw, but they want to establish the run game. They're a run-first team. It's very hard to run on Baltimore, and Baltimore has a lot of offensive weapons. Derrick Henry closing in on 1,200 yards. Flowers, Andrews, likely. But the Eagles don't really care because they have their own weapons. Hurts, Barkley's closing in on 1,400 yards. The guy could potentially get 2,000 yards maybe this season. They have A.J. Brown. They have Smith when he's healthy. But I have Baltimore winning a shootout at the very end, winning this one 31-28. This game could go either way. Like I said, I want to wait to see what happens Monday night, and I might have changed my pick come Saturday night for my Saturday video. But as of right now, Baltimore wins this one in a close shootout. And our next game, we have the final Sunday night game, second to last game at 8:20 p.m. on NBC. The 5-6 49ers, they've just completely fallen off the rails. Purdy's beat up now. This whole team, too many injuries. They went from the Super Bowl to under 500. Right now, they'll be playing the 9-2 Buffalo Bills, coming off the bye, fully rested. Buffalo 6.5-point favorites. The over-under here is 41.5. Buffalo has a 60.6% chance to win this game. Buffalo's one of the hottest teams in the NFL. The 49ers, when they're healthy, to me, the best top-to-bottom roster in the NFL on both sides of the ball. But that's the big issue. When they're healthy, they have yet to be fully healthy this season. As of right now, massive issues now at the quarterback position. Brock Purdy, when does Brock Purdy come back? And for Buffalo, Josh Allen having a great year. He's closing in on 2,600 yards, 18 touchdowns, 5 picks. He's also running the ball. He has 5 rushing touchdowns. He's picking up massive yardage. He's taking what the defense gives him this season. He's not forcing things, playing smart. Their last game, they just beat the Chiefs. Right now, San Francisco, they're averaging 23.6, throwing for 246.2, running for 138.4. Their defense is not the defense it was last season. They're giving up 23.6. And for Buffalo, the number 3 offense in the NFL, they're averaging 29.1, throwing for 226.1, running for 119.2, only giving up 19.5 points a game. San Francisco has the playmakers. When you're healthy, Mason, McCaffrey, Kittle, Ayuk, Debo, Jennings, but all those guys aren't going to be on the field on Sunday. That's the massive loss here. They just don't have as many weapons as they're used to having. And there's now questions at the quarterback position. Buffalo, Allen, Cook, Shakir, Coleman, Cooper when he plays. Lots of weapons. They're playing it safe. They don't need to do anything to force this game. It's going to fall into their lap at home. I have Buffalo winning this one 26-17. And finally, our final game of the night, the Monday night game on ESPN at 8:15 p.m. We had a lot of games everyone was playing this week. No one's on a bye. We're going to have the 3-8 Browns coming off of a win. What a win it was. Props to Jameis Winston. He led that team down the field. They were able to beat the Steelers defense. They'll be playing the 7-5 Denver Broncos, who they have a really good defense also. Back-to-back tough physical games here for the Browns. And the Broncos are 5.5-point favorites. The over-under is 41.5. And Denver has a 51.7% chance to win this game. Right now, Jameis Winston filling in for Deshaun Watson, who, let's be honest, Deshaun Watson was playing awful. He's closing in on 1,300 yards, 7 touchdowns, 4 picks. Bo Nix closing in on 2,600 yards, 16 touchdowns, 6 picks. What a turnaround for Bo Nix. Those first 2 games of this season, some of the worst quarterback play I've ever seen. Props to Bo Nix. Props to Sean Payton. They completely changed the game plan around. They're playing the Bo Nix's strength. Short, dink and dunk passes. Roll the pocket out, give him the option always to be able to scramble the ball. Now this offense, this is a completely different team, complemented by a top 5 overall defense. When your defense is that good, the offense just has to do enough to not lose the game. Right now for Cleveland, they're averaging 16.9, throwing for 204.3, running for 88.2, giving up 24.3 points a game. But they have that momentum from their win. And right now Denver, they're averaging 22 points a game, throwing for 201.9, running for 111.6, and their defense gives up 16.8 points a game. That's a top 5 national defense. They get after it. They get a lot of pressure on opposing quarterbacks. They're going to hit Jameis Winston. Jameis Winston played a good, clean game this past weekend, but he is known to have turnover problems. Can Denver hit him enough to rattle him in that pocket, force some errant throws, force some turnovers, which now gives your offense the short field. Right now for the Browns, they have Ford, they have Judy. Denver has Williams, Sutton. They have the defense. That's the X factor here. They can rely on that every game. I have Denver winning this one 24-18. So that's our breakdown. That's our picks and predictions for all of our Week 13 NFL games, the early version. One will be out later this week. Make sure to hit that like button. Make sure to subscribe. If you have any comments, please drop them below, and I will respond. Thank you.